been a weekend of upsets. The Suns get the scalp they were looking for against the Dogs. The Dockers repeat the trick to beat the Demons. And the Hawks kick 5 straight to overcome the Saints. This is the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. Hello and welcome to the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Kane Cornes. Kane, we've had a dramatic weekend of football. So many upsets across the course of the weekend so far. Let's start in Darwin, though, where Gold Coast got that scalp they were looking for against the Dogs.
What is going on in this round? So there's Matt Rao, who was enormous. We'll get to that with his 16 disposals. These are the big last quarter moments. Gold Coast got out to a handy lead, and then the Bulldogs started storming home. Ugle-Hagan there from Waitman kicked his third goal. Thought he covered the ground magnificently. Took 9 marks, Jamari Ugle-Hagan. This free kick wasn't a free kick, and umpires have to be better than that, to Cody Waitman. Luckily, that didn't cost Gold Coast the game, but he went back to put the Western Bulldogs within 1 point with just over 5 minutes to go. And they've been challenged this year, Gold Coast, and have wilted mostly.
Yep.
But that Bailey Humphries goal there sealed the deal for Gold Coast. And I thought there was a bit of a changing of the guard. He was huge.
Yep.
Matt Rao was huge. We'll get to Lukosius. Anderson is always good. But all of a sudden, there's some fresh legs and some dominance running through the midfield.
They pulled away in the second quarter when Jack Lukosius remarkably kicked 4 goals from 5 kicks, and I reckon he kicked them all from a combined total of about 10 metres out.
Just smart. He's just smart. He's having a big year, and I love the fact that they've settled him as a forward. He's been wing, he's been half-back, but now this is his position, and this is why. He reads it a half a second quicker than his opponent now. It was a bit of O'Donnell, it was a bit of O'Brien, but he got the better of all of those. How's this for a second quarter? 4 goals from 5 kicks, as you said. 5 score involvements. They only kicked 4 goals, 1 in the quarter, and he was involved in all 5 of them. Did it on the ground, did it in the air there, and clearly he's a beautiful set shot. So he was the match winner for the Suns, particularly in the second quarter.
In contrast, the Western Bulldogs in the second term had 20 inside 50s. They only managed 2 behinds. They butchered the ball going forward.
So let's look at some of the examples of that. They absolutely butchered the ball. They had so many opportunities tonight. 67 inside 50s for 11 scores. So their inefficiency, and this was highlighted. If you said that you've got Ugle-Hagan and Norton and Lobb as forwards, and you're going to have 20 opportunities and you're not going to score a goal. It's remarkable sort of stuff. Collins was outstanding. He just backed himself to read it, as was Ballard, the #1 intercepting defender in the game, or certainly top 3. He was excellent tonight as well. So that was a credit to Gold Coast. They were under siege tonight at times. Yep. And on the flip side, they only had the 10 entries for their 5 goals. So their efficiency versus the Western Bulldogs is what stood out during the course of the game.
Matt Rao went head-to-head with Marcus Bontempelli throughout this one. He almost out-bonted the Bont. He had 16 clearances.
He just flicked the switch. I did the game tonight, and halfway through the third term, he had about 9 touches. And I said, I'd love to see Rao get really busy. And from that moment there, he just went absolutely crazy. His third quarter, he had 11 touches, 9 of those were contested, 7 clearances in a quarter alone, 3 intercepts, 4 inside 50s and 3 score involvements. This is what I love. Yep. This is what I've been calling for. Get outside of the stoppage and break away. Starting to do that. That was a pivotal moment, as was this. So look at this with 2 minutes 50 to go in the last quarter. Big ground ball. Brush off Bontempelli with a don't argue and set up the match-winning goal for Bailey Humphrey.
So Bontempelli, we know, is the best contested and clearance player in the game. But have a look at those stats. Clearances 16-9 in favour of Matt Rao.
He's building into all-Australian realms here. Now, I'd love to see the balance be a bit better where he gets some more stuff on the outside. Bont was really busy early, particularly in the first quarter. Didn't use the footy as well as he usually did, but he was excellent. That is the complete midfielder's game, and stood up in big moments when his side needed him to.
Let's head to the MCD now, where Wallyup got the result against Narm. And I tell you what, it was a dramatic final term as well. The Dockers in round 11 did this exact same thing to the Ds. They did it again.
Yep, and they were going goal for goal here. There's a hanger from Schultz, who actually started that play up on the wing and worked so hard. He was quiet in the first half, didn't touch the footy, but had some big moments in the last quarter. Van Rooyen got the crowd going. Cozzy Pickett took 4 marks inside 50 for the game. There's Sparrow went back and kicked a big goal. They were inaccurate in front of goal at times, Melbourne, and missed some easy ones. Jai miss bobs up here and kicks his third, but it was a big performance from Fremantle, who are building into this season like you would not believe. There's Cozzy Pickett. He went back and kicked that, but you felt like Melbourne were going to overrun them with the momentum and with the crowd, but Fremantle just had some unheralded players stand up, like Bailey Banfield, who takes this mark and goes back and kicks a big goal at a pivotal moment. We mentioned the 3 goals from a miss, and they're no longer reliant on Nat Fyfe, who played today and did his part but wasn't at his absolute best. But they've got their midfield strength back as well. Brayshaw and Sarong, and Jackson today was terrific.
Well, last year the D's were 10-0 when they played the Dockers, and you might remember it was the third quarter where they kicked 8 goals to 1. That's what won them the game. Eerily similar tonight. Melbourne beat them across the remaining 3 quarters, but it was that third term where the Dockers got the job done.
They did. I'm actually not worried about Melbourne. And that might sound funny, but I thought they defended really well. They're a hard team to play against. They're a hard team to score against. They didn't have Oliver. They were inefficient going forward, which we've seen. I'm not sure McDonald is going to be the answer. I'd only go with one. I'd go with Van Rooyen, Fritsch and Grundy or Gawn. I don't think they need the extra tool there. So I think they're well coached enough to work it out, and I think Melbourne will still be okay.
Luke Jackson playing against his former side for the first time. He had his ruck partner, Sean Darcy, go down very early in this one with a hamstring injury. It was just about his best game, not only for the Dockers, but just about for his career as well.
He's a ruckman. He's a ruckman. He's not a forward. So this was his best game because he was forced through injury to play in the ruck. And this is what he can do in the ruck. And it was amazing. Like, he was getting the hit out. He was following up. He was marking the footy, intercepting around the ground. And we're showing a bit of Grundy as well, who was solid. And Gawn was solid as well. But Jackson was the best of the rucks. And that's the sort of stuff that he can do. So do they have a decision to make at the end of the year? Do they make a decision with Sean Darcy and try and get a first-round pick for him? No. I know you need another one, but you don't need 2 highly paid A-grade ruckmen when they could trade Darcy out for a first-round pick, inject another midfielder through that group, which they need. I think they're 1 short. O'Meara's not getting any younger, and Brayshaw and Sarong need the help. They don't need 2 A-grade ruckmen.
He kicked 5 goals in 2 weeks before this game, Luke Jackson.
I understand, but he's a much more effective player when he is rucking 80% of the time.
All right, we'll head to Marvel Stadium now, where Hawthorn kicked the final 5 goals of the game to upset St Kilda. This is a remarkable finish.
I love this from Hawthorn, and I really admire what they're building. Under criticism, and we've all been involved in that when we saw the off-season changes that they made, but Sam Mitchell is a genius. He's got them playing exactly the right way. There is a method about the way that they play, and their last-minute moments or quarter moments here was as smart as we've seen. So they lost close ones against the Giants and Adelaide earlier on in the year, and that ball use there and the way they work themselves around the spare from the Saints, which we'll get to in a minute, but they piled on the goals. In every statistic, they were dominant, and this was a win that I think they needed, and you can tell that the belief in this group is growing, and that is goal number 499 from Luke Bruce, who is going straight into the Hall of Fame when he is eligible. What a remarkable career.
That Kajitsky goal that put Hawthorn in front, the lead-up to that goal was just emblematic of how mature Hawthorn is for such a young group. Now, Cal Wilkie is behind the ball, one of the best key defenders in the competition this season. Hawthorn trying to take the game on because they're behind within the final 2 minutes. Look at just the way they pinpointed their way around it. They manipulated St Kilda's backline to get the ball to Kajitsky.
So this is the growth in the group, and we saw those games where they should have won against the Giants and Adelaide, but they just kept bombing it inside 50. So to work their way through that, right from the back line to the other side of the ground. Then you get the footy in the hands of Dylan Moore, who made an excellent decision going inside 50. And then the finish, you can just see the growth and the belief in the group growing by the week.
All right, we'll head to our Saturday star now. It can be none other than Hawthorn captain James Sicily. 43 disposals, remarkably 22 intercept possessions.
This is incredible. 8 intercept marks. And last week I said and made a bold call that Zach Butters had played the best individual game of any player this season. Has he been knocked off by James Sicily? Because this was an extraordinary game, and it's that sort of stuff which you don't really get a stat for other than a tackle and putting himself in the right spot time and time again. So last week we were really critical of Carlton for continually kicking the ball to Moore when he took his 10 intercept marks. You've got to be equally as critical of the Saints today for their ball use, and this courage here in a big moment with a minute to go when your team is up by 4 points. That is captaincy, and I speak about growth. I didn't think he started the season that well and made some errors and gave away some silly free kicks, but that is as good a game as you are ever going to see from a defender today.
St Kilda's last 7 games now, they've gone loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Today they were beaten so comprehensively by a side that, as you said, many pick for the wooden spoon.
They've lost their strength. There's no doubt about that. So we're highlighting how Hawthorn got them on the outside. And from that Port Adelaide Friday night game where they exposed Saints and they sort of worked them out with that faster ball movement, if you can match them inside, then you get them on the outside. So how's about the domination? 28 scoring shots. We didn't say that about the Saints in the first 6 weeks. Outside plus 76, inside 50s plus 15, dominant, the marks inside 50, and even the bounces to highlight getting outside of the Saints. And they're in a real dangerous spot of completely dropping off and missing the finals from a spot they shouldn't have at the start of the year.
Let's head to GMHBA Stadium now, where the Giants held off a late fight back from the Cats. This is about the biggest win in the Adam Kingsley tenure so far.
I think so. It's probably the biggest upset of the season. I mean, I just didn't predict this or see this coming, particularly with who the Giants had out. No Taylor. He's an All-Australian. Himmelberg wasn't there. Haynes wasn't there. Kelly was laid out with a hammy that we didn't know he'd done until Thursday, and they got it done. So Keith on Hawkins, what a job it was, and Buckley on Jeremy Cameron, keeping them to 3 goals. Amazing stuff. And Riccardi was awesome. I thought their pressure and their pressure rating was absolutely through the roof. They kicked 5 forward 50 stoppage goals, which you wouldn't see. And these are the last quarter moments. Daniels is one of those. What a story it is after injury. He had 19, he kicked 3, he had 5 forward 50 tackles, which we'll get to in a minute, and he was involved in everything and was the energiser for them.
Kane, can you believe it? For a second straight week, an interchange controversy. This is our moment of the weekend. You wanted to raise this.
I couldn't believe this. Geelong, a premiership-winning team, decide this is the right time to interchange a couple of really important players. So Parfitt and Kolodjasny run off at that moment. Stewart and Atkins run on and they lose complete shape. Look at Stewart. They want him behind the ball. He had 31. He was awesome. He goes to the stoppage, doesn't know what he's doing. They lose shape. This leads to the Riccardi goal. So at that moment, if in doubt, just stay on the ground. You don't make a ridiculous interchange decision there, particularly for your quarterback in Tom Stewart, who goes to the stoppage, he doesn't know what he's doing. So if in doubt, you hold and you wait until you get a break in play, be that a goal or a stoppage right next to the interchange. So that really cost them at a pivotal moment.
2-point game at that stage as well. It was Brent Daniels and Toby Green. Toby Green in his 200th game had 4 goals to half-time. They finished with 7 goals between them. They were so lively inside 50. Yeah,
well, if he's not the best player in the comp, he's 1, 2 or 3, Toby Green. I've said that a couple of times this year. He's just a marvel. I mean, his ability to work off the ball is what gets me, and we'll show a couple of the big one-on-ones he won. But that stuff there, how does he get into space? Because he reads it quicker than anyone, and he works harder than anyone else. Now, you know it's going to Toby all the time, but he still finds space, and the ball use from Ward was great. We're highlighting these one-on-ones. I mean, that's against De Koning, who was awful at a touch today, and part of that, I think, is the fault of the coach for trying to make him a forward. We'll get to that, but Daniels and Green just lit up the side for the Giants, and we mentioned their tackles, 22 forward tackles to 4. Daniels had 5 of them. Their forward pressure and their pressure right around the ground was amazing today. Adam Kingsley came in with a plan and his players executed it. So we spoke of Hawthorn's growth. Really good to see the Giants' growth today.
Cats are now 5 and 6 on the season, starting to get a bit worrying for them. Have a look at this. Under Chris Scott, they'd only lost 3 in a row once. That's in over a decade of football under Chris Scott. They've now done it twice in 11 games so far.
And losing at home, that's the biggest worry for me, because their draw is really difficult. They got Western Bulldogs at Marvel, then they got the bye, Port Adelaide and Melbourne. And if you're losing at home, they've got a lot of games still to come at home, but they're starting to lose touch, certainly with the top 4. And now with the top 8, they find themselves out of the top 8 after round 11.
Let's head to the SCG now, where the Swans got the job done over the Blues. It was Nick Blakey who was just absolutely awesome in this one.
I reckon he's an absolute weapon, and let's start talking about him a little bit more. He's one of the more unique players in the game. I don't know what he's paid, Riley. I don't know what he's paid, but it's not enough. He's a $900,000 a year player, Blakey, because he's doing things that not a lot of people in the game are doing. Look, he's playing on bigger opponents because he's forced to with the Bucatans and Rampy out. So at times he had Mackay and at times he had Curnow. He does that without any complaints, but then it's his offensive stuff and his ability to do this and intercept the ball and go. So there are now rules which open the whole game up for players like him. We've got the stand rule, we've got the kicking rule. He's the best exponent of that. That's off Curnow. Yep. Look at the time of the game. Look how crucial it is, and he just goes. And then, once again, we're highlighting that, but his ball use, his intercepting ability, and now his ability to defend. Yeah. I wasn't sure about him, physically and how aggressive he was going to be, but he's impressed me. Let's start talking about him a little bit more.
Carlton's now lost 6 of its last 7 games, and the same errors that have plagued their game for so often came about here throughout this one.
Yeah, this
is their lack of forward pressure inside 50, and this was a real bugbear of mine throughout the entirety of the game. There's so many instances here where the Swans actually fumbled coming out of the back line, and they still played their way through it.
So they kicked 3 goals from D50 transition, and Carlton kicked none. Now, Michael Voss spoke after last week's game. He said, don't talk to me about offence, talk to me about defence, because that is what we need to work on. Well, they didn't work on it hard enough, clearly, during the week. So they've got issues right across their game, and we're going to get to a few of those shortly, and you're going to highlight some stuff with their forwards. But their inability to defend this, and you're right, ball hits the ground, ball fumble, loopy handball, but there is a lack of forward pressure there. So they've got personnel issues with their defence, issues around stoppage, and you want to speak about their efficiency going inside 50.
Yeah, have a look at some vision here that I want to highlight throughout the night between Carlton and Sydney, particularly the Blues and their efficiency going inside 50. Now, this happened countless times where they targeted Charlie Curnow or Harry Mackay when they had options. Take the short option there. Now, what a kick to the 50-metre mark does is it allows you to take a spot-up kick and then go deep inside 50 with your entry instead of having shallow entries inside 50. This was an opportunity for them to change the angle going inside 50. Instead, they go to an outnumbered Harry Mackay. This happened countless times. Tom Hickey had just about the easiest night you could possibly imagine because he knew exactly where Carlton was going to be kicking the footy. It was either going to Charlie Curnow or Harry Mackay. So the big ruckman could station himself there. Here's another one from Jordan Boyd through the centre. Got an easy hit-up kick on the 50-metre arc. Instead, he looks for Charlie Curnow. Time after time, the Blues are just going directly to Charlie Curnow or Harry Mackay when they've got options if they lower their eyes and look for them more. We're about to head to a stat now as well, which just highlights that more and more throughout the season. Have a look at this. So they've targeted Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay 147 times going inside 50 throughout this season. The rest of the team, 93 times. You
can understand it. I mean, they're both Coleman medalists, but he's a big issue. Harry Mackay is a big issue. Charlie Curnow's ball use, he was marking everything and looks dominant, but his ball use, he had 5 clanger kicks and kicked it at 30%. So his ball use was down. That was problematic of the whole side. So their ball use as a whole is woeful. That vision is excellent that you highlighted because getting an inside 50 is not an issue. I mean, they have enough inside 50s, 52 from rounds 8 to 11, but their effectiveness at scoring or their ratio from scoring from those is right down the bottom of the competition.
So their big strength last year was stoppage and scoring from stoppage throughout the season. This year, as you can see, they're averaging a similar score from clearance throughout the year. They're getting a similar amount of clearances throughout the year, but their scores from that is so far down.
That was their weapon, wasn't it? We saw it last year when they were doing that and they were bursting away from stoppage. And not only was the team scoring, but their actual individual midfielders were scoring. Cripps kicked 20 goals last year. He's dropped completely off. I thought the targeting of Cripps from Isaac Heaney, who went and did a really selfless team role against him. Now the opposition are coming for him since the Saints have highlighted that. Dawson's gone to him, Steele's gone to him, Heaney's gone to him. Stop Cripps, stop Carlton. I mean, that's the story of that. And there's too many of the same type running through that midfield. Hewitt, Kennedy, Walsh, Cripps, they're all the same. And they're going to have to do something with their list at the end of the year. I don't know what it is because they're a bit hamstrung with their salary cap and the ridiculous long-term deals that they've handed out like lollies to everyone, but they've got some big list decisions to make at the end of the year.
Luke Parker and Adam Chera received 1 match suspensions, respectively, for dangerous tackles. The Blues could be forced into 5 changes. So Patrick Cripps came off with an ankle injury. Chera's obviously suspended. Holland's hurt his shoulder. Hewitt got a concussion. Newman got a hamstring. They've got Melbourne next Friday night, starting to look very worrying. Let's head out west now, where Essendon got the job done against West Coast. This was a pretty routine win for the Bombers, who are back in the top 8. They're looking like finals is on the agenda.
Yep.
Kyle Langford, man, he's been remarkable this year. He kicked another 3 goals tonight. He's got 20 for the year. He could end with 50 goals for the season.
He's had a great year. I'm almost barring West Coast on this program, so I'm not going to mention West Coast again for a couple of weeks. So let's talk about Essendon. They're going to make the finals. The Bombers are going to make the finals. I don't know at the end of the year whether they're going to be a top 8 team, and that doesn't make any sense, but it does because their draw is easy. Yeah. They play West Coast twice. They play North Melbourne twice. They've still got 3 of those games to come for the rest of the year. They only got to pinch a couple of others, and they play finals. So get ready for some September action, Bombers fans. It is happening.
Pretty silly stat for you, Kane. This was their 2nd biggest win in Perth, in Western Australia, ever. Their biggest since 2001, when they beat West Coast by 89 points, but a 50-point drubbing of the Eagles.
It used to be a hard place to go and play. It used to be the toughest road trip in football. Now it's not, clearly, because of the team that I'm not going to mention.
Well, speaking of West Coast, I know you're not mentioning them. I will. They will have a pick in the mid-season draft on Wednesday night. Well, they can open up a spot. Jai Cully's obviously got that ACL injury. You can catch all of the mid-season rookie draft action right here on afl.com.au in the AFL Live official app. Every pick live as it happens, analysis, reaction to that from 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be a fantastic night. Kane will head across now to the remaining games in this round 11. It starts with Richmond against Yardapulti at the MCG, the first game under Andrew McQualter for the Tigers. Collingwood and North Melbourne, and then Adelaide and Brisbane to finish us off. I want to get to our Kane's question, though. What does McQualter need to do to keep this job full-time in the back half of the season?
There's a push for him already. There's a real push which has come probably in the last 3 to 4 days. I heard Ross Lyon speak about him earlier in the week. I heard him speak about him again today, and he says he's perfectly suited because he knows Richmond's game style inside and out. Yeah. What does he need to do from a win-loss point of view? Well, probably 50-50 or just a touch better. I think he just needs to win the players over. Yeah. If he can win the influential senior players over at Richmond, he is going to be hard to overlook with everything that you're hearing about his coaching credentials.
A few more upsets to come on Sunday?
Maybe not. I think we've had our share of upsets already in round 11. So hopefully Port Adelaide win, Collingwood win. Adelaide and Brisbane's a genuine 50-50. I'm going to go for the Crows, but don't listen to me.
It's a big day of action. We'll see you next week on The Round So Far.